All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're talking about a skill that's absolutely essential for any doctor in India, especially if you're going into community medicine. We're talking about outbreak investigation. And trust me, this isn't just theory from a textbook. This is about being on the front lines, ready to protect your community when it matters most.
I want you to really picture this. A mysterious illness is spreading. The hospitals are filling up. People are scared. This isn't some disaster movie plot. It's a very real scenario where you, as the physician, become the detective. You're the one who has to connect the dots and stop the threat. The stakes? Well, they couldn't be higher.
So, think of this as your call to adventure. Being a doctor in India means you're going to face some pretty unique public health challenges, right? Our population density, our climate, our festivals, it all plays a part. Understanding the specific landscape is really your first big step.
Okay, so what even is an outbreak? This right here is a perfect real-world example. It's not just that a few people got sick. It's that sudden unexpected spike, going from 1 or 2 cases a month to 15 in just 2 days. That jump above the normal expected number, that is a signal. That's the alarm bell that tells you something is wrong and it's time to act.
Now, it's really important we get the language right, because these words get thrown around a lot. An outbreak, that's local. Think food poisoning at a single wedding. An epidemic spreads wider, maybe across a whole district, like a cholera outbreak. And a pandemic? Well, we all know what that is now. That's a global problem, like COVID-19. It's all about the scale.
To really grasp the challenge we have here in India, just look at this number, 28%. That's the proportion of the world's tuberculosis cases that are right here in our country. This isn't just a statistic, it's a constant underlying pressure on our health system. It means we have to be always watching, always ready to stop small flare-ups from becoming massive problems.
And then, of course, you have the pandemic scale. More than 45 million reported cases of COVID-19 in India. A number that big just drives home the point. Being an expert at handling local outbreaks is one of the most powerful ways we can prevent a national catastrophe. It all starts at the community level.
So when you're faced with all this chaos, how do you even begin to make sense of it? You don't just run around randomly. You use a blueprint, a systematic 10-step process that's basically the gold standard for every single outbreak investigation. Let's walk through it.
All right, the moment of truth. The reports are flying in. Cases are climbing. Panic is starting to bubble up. So, what's your first move? Do you rush out to the field, call a press conference? No. The right answer is to take a breath and start the process. And it all begins with one simple but absolutely critical question.
And here it is. This is your roadmap. Notice how logical it is. You start by just confirming an outbreak is actually happening, then you work your way through identifying cases, figuring out the cause, putting controls in place, and finally, communicating what you found. You're going to rely on this exact sequence for your entire career.
Now let's put this blueprint on a real-world clock, because this is a race against time. This isn't some leisurely checklist. The first 24 hours, that's all about confirming you have a problem. The first week is an intense sprint of investigation and analysis. And after that, it's an ongoing effort to control the spread and communicate with everyone.
Okay, you've got the blueprint. Now let's see how you actually use these tools out in the real world. This is the part where you stop being just a student and you become a true disease detective, using epidemiology to solve the mystery.
One of your first jobs, and honestly, one of the most important, is to create a solid case definition. You have to decide very clearly who counts as a case. You'll use 4 criteria: person, place, time, and clinical signs. So, for example, is it any person with a fever over 101 and a specific rash in this village since March 1st? Getting that specific is the foundation for everything that follows.
You know, the data you collect will actually start to tell you a story. You just have to know how to read it. When you plot your cases over time and you see a chart like this one with a really sharp single peak, that's a massive clue. It screams point source outbreak. It tells you that a whole bunch of people were likely exposed to the exact same source, like contaminated food at a festival, all at once.
So you've got a theory, right? Maybe it was the water from a certain well. How do you prove it? Well, you use a tool like this, a simple 2x2 table. You compare people who got sick, the cases, with people who didn't, the controls. You look at who was exposed to your suspected source and who wasn't. From that, you can calculate something called an odds ratio. And if that number is greater than 1, bingo,
You've just found a statistically significant link. Look, finding the cause is a huge victory, but it's only half the battle. The real goal is to stop the outbreak in its tracks and protect the community. This is the climax of your investigation. This is where you take everything you've learned and turn it into action.
And in this phase, speed is everything. You have to move fast to break the chain of transmission. That means isolating people who are sick, quarantining those who are exposed, and controlling the source. That could be shutting down a contaminated well or pulling a bad batch of food off the shelves. These are the actions that save lives right now.
But as a community physician, your job doesn't end when the crisis is over. You have to think long-term. A reactive approach is like being a firefighter. You put out the current fire. But a proactive approach is like being a fire marshal. You work to fireproof the community for the future through things like better sanitation, vaccination drives, and health education. Your ultimate goal should always be prevention. It's also super important to remember that not all interventions are created equal. The absolute best thing you can do, the most effective strategy, is to eliminate the source of the problem altogether. Sure, things like wearing masks are good for individual protection, but they're way less effective than, say, fixing a contaminated water supply for the entire village. This hierarchy is key when you're making recommendations. Okay, we've talked about the challenge, we've walked through the blueprint, and we've planned out the battle. Now let's talk about you and your future. Because this isn't just a topic in a class. This is your mission. You are the next generation of public health guardians.
And here's the great news. You will not be doing this alone. You're going to be a crucial part of this amazing public health ecosystem we have in India. You'll work with the IDSP for surveillance data, you'll connect with communities through the incredible ASHA network, and you'll get expert backup from the National Center for Disease Control, the NCDC. You're part of a team.
And once you master these skills, so many doors are going to open up for you. Seriously. You could be a district epidemiologist right on the front lines. You could be a researcher at ICMR, discovering new solutions. You could even work for the WHO, shaping global health. Your journey as a disease detective is really just getting started.
In the end, it all comes down to this simple, timeless truth from the poet Virgil. As a doctor, and especially as an outbreak investigator, you're not just treating a disease. You are protecting the single most valuable thing a community possesses, its health.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. The next outbreak, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. You now have the knowledge, you have the tools, your community, your country will be counting on you. So the only question left is, are you ready?